Good morning all. In this video, we will talk about last period aggregation concept in IBP. First, let's understand the uses of last period aggregation. The name itself says that the last period of a given time span would be displayed at an aggregated level. For an example, when we display a data of inventory key figure at a calendar week level, the inventory on the last day of a calendar week should be displayed in your IBP Excel add-in, the planning view, right? Likewise, the last month of a quarter would be displayed at a quarter level, okay? All the stock key figures except the stock on hand would use this last period aggregation. Let's take an example of safety stock, projected stock, right? Or inventory target. All these key figures would actually use this last period aggregation, and that's the correct way of using those key figures. And the stock on hand will not be using this because the stock on hand value would always be using from the current day or current week, right? So let's understand the types of last period aggregation as well, right? There are two types of last period aggregation. The first one is the static last period aggregation, where the data at a lowest level, let's take an example of a day, the lowest level is a day, right, would be aggregated to the static time profile level, right? Let's say you have a data at a day level, as you see in a screenshot, right? The inventory is defined at a day level, that's the lowest level, okay? Every day you have some data like 10:30, 10:30, 50, 40, 20. So in a calendar week 4, we have 7 days, and the last day of a calendar week 4 is actually 27th of January, and which is having a 20 as a quantity, right? Now, whenever we use the static LPA means like you can aggregate it to a particular aggregated level. Let's say take an example of a technical week. So technical week is your the aggregated level, whereas the lowest level is a day level. Now, whenever you apply a last period aggregation, the value of this technical week would be a 20, right? In the same way, if you go to a calendar week 5, again it has 7 days, right? So whenever we aggregate our data at a technical week level, so last day of a technical week 5, which is on 31st, right? So 30 would be considered as the technical week 5 value, and the 3rd of Feb, which is having a 20 as a inventory, right? And that would be a last day of a technical week 5B. So that would be considered as a technical week 5B a data. When we display data at a technical week level, this is how the data would be displayed. Now, the same way, if you try to display data at a calendar week, your configuration is defined for a technical week. You applied a last period aggregation for a technical week where the lowest level is a day level, right? When you try to aggregate data to calendar week, what would happen? It will just add the sum. The aggregation mode would be applied here. Like for an example, calendar week 4 and technical week 4 both are equal because both are having 7 days, whereas in case of a split week, right, a calendar week 5 has two technical weeks. Now when we display data at a calendar week level, what would happen? It will just add up 30 and 20. The technical week 5A has 30, technical week B has 20, so total 50 would be added up and showing at a calendar week level, because at a calendar week level the last period aggregation would not apply because it's a static LPA. Only for a particular time profile level, the static LPA would be applied. It means that the output planning level will have a root a time profile level, which is just a parent of a input root time profile level. Okay, I hope you understood this. Now let's talk about a dynamic last period aggregation. Okay, here, the lowest level data would be aggregated to any time profile level using your last period aggregation. Any means like you take an example again here, right? The same inventory key figure, which is defined at a day level. Okay, so all the days are having the same data, same data. You can take an example, right? So whenever we display data at technical week level, it would display a 20 for a technical week 4 because that's the last day value of that week. The same way, technical week 5 will have 5A will have 30, technical week 5B will have 20 as a last period aggregated values. Now the same way, if you try to aggregate it to a calendar week level, what would happen? It would again apply the last period aggregation on a day level. So last day of a week is equal to 20, right? That's a quantity for technical week 4 or calendar week 4. And the same way, the calendar week 5 has the last day as 3rd of February, right? And that would be considered as the last period value. So that's what it displays. So you can clearly observe the difference between static LPA and dynamic LPA. Okay, in most of our key figures, like all the stock key figure except your stock on hand, would apply the dynamic LPA. Whereas the static LPA would not give a a proper value when you aggregate it at the top of the output planning level. Okay, now let's see how we configure this last period aggregation in the system. First, let's see a static last period aggregation. So this is the key figure target inventory. Okay, I've just created one key figure. And if you see here, the second calculation definition, okay, the output planning level is actually calendar week product location. So calendar week is a root attribute. Product location are your attributes, right? And the input planning level is week product location, which is a technical week root attribute, and location product are your structural attributes. Now, as you see here, the input level is actually at a technical week level, and you are applying a last period aggregation just to display the data at a calendar week level. It's not a dynamic aggregation as such, right? So whenever you aggregate it to month level, what would happen? It would add up the data at the technical week level. Last period aggregation would only apply to your calendar week. Okay, as you have seen. Now let's see how the dynamic LPA would be configured. So this is the dynamic LPA configuration. As you see, we have conversion also applied here, right? If you see here, the output planning level, here we will not have any time profile level as a root attribute. You see, we have just location product UIM2 ID. There is no root attribute in case of your time profile levels. You see, technical week, product location UIM2, and there is no root for your time profile level attributes. Okay, whereas your input is defined at a technical week level. So whenever you aggregate the data to calendar week level, month level, quarter, or year, it will always apply the last period aggregation, unlike your static last period aggregation. You see here the input planning level is technical week, location product, UIM2 ID. Okay, I hope you understood the concept of last period aggregation, how the planning level has to be configured to apply the last period aggregation dynamically or statically. Okay, thank you very much. If you like this video, please share it with your friends.